Erika, is music important in your life?
Yeah, I love music more than life. Yeah.
Well, me too. I think that's pretty powerful. And so today on the Growth Busters podcast, we're going to be talking about music.
Calling. Call the Growth Busters. Whoa.
Welcome to the Growth Busters podcast, where we discuss the joy of sustainable living and the work that needs to be done to get our entire society into a recovery program for growth addiction. Ask your doctor if sustainable living is right for you. I'm Dave Gardner, director of the documentary Growth Busters Hooked on Growth, and chief scientist here at the Institute for Advanced Growth Addiction Studies.
Hi, I'm Erika Arias. I am co-host of the Growth Busters podcast.
For cutting-edge information about our culture's unsustainable love affair with growth and what we can do about it, visit growthbusters.org. Well, Erika, before we get into it, I'd like to share a little bit of listener feedback whenever we get something interesting. So I'm going to try to do it quickly today because we have lots to talk about and listen to. First, I want to share an email I got from Joshua Spodek. He hosts a podcast called Leadership and the Environment. And in fact, I was a guest on that podcast on one of his earlier episodes. And if you haven't heard that, you might want to go back and dig that up, Erika. Anyway, Josh wrote, "First, I enjoyed your last episode. I don't watch much TV, so I welcomed your curated picks and comments on them." And he was talking about the Real Time with Bill Maher and the piece from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He went on to write, "I'm writing to recommend my latest podcast episode. It's about 8 minutes. It's number 183, Reusing and Recycling Are Tactical. Reducing is strategic. It puts together some ideas I've been working on for a while related to huge misunderstandings about recycling as opposed to reducing, that is, reversing growth. I think you'd appreciate it more than most. I'd also love your thoughts on it since these views are evolving. Josh." Oh, and then he had a PS. When you and Erika talked about the strategy of creating more babies in the hopes that some would come up with solutions, I thought, yes, we did that. They came up with a solution. Have fewer babies.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Yay. Thanks, Josh.
Sometimes I'm tempted when people think that we're going to innovate our way out of the all of these environmental crises that we've got. Sometimes I'm tempted to say, you know what if the innovation is that we decided to scale back the whole scale of the human enterprise?
Yeah.
That's pretty innovative. That's real innovative. And then he had a PPS. Have I told you about my new book, Initiative, that launched a couple days ago? And I really think very highly of Joshua Spodek, so I'll include a link to his podcast and a link to his latest book in our show notes.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that we might invite Joshua to just join us kind of on a regular basis for like a 5 or 10 minute conversation. I think we could have some interesting conversations. So
that'd be great.
More about that later. Okay, now one more listener feedback I wanted to share. This was an interesting interchange. I'm going to share with you this guy's email and then what I wrote in response. "How ironic that the first thing I hear when listening to your podcast about the wisdom of examining human growth is a request for a new co-host to accommodate Grace, who is breeding another child. Wow."
Oh.
That's kind of what I thought. Well, that's a little... maybe a little on the tacky side, but not altogether surprising that somebody's going to come up with that, because people are always looking for, evidence of us being hypocritical.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think our listeners might find informative what I wrote back to Todd. I wrote, "Well, I'll be sure to share your comment on our next podcast. It is her first child, and I hope her last. But people in this world are on all parts of the spectrum of living sustainably. None of us are perfect, as I'm sure you're aware. I had 2 kids 30 years ago. Turns out I should have had 0. But I thought at the time that stopping at 2 was good enough. Be sure to check out the episode of the Overpopulation podcast with Travis Reeder discussing this very subject, and let me know what you think." And what I recommended he check out was episode 7 of the Overpopulation podcast, Our Moral Obligation to Conceive Just One Child, with bioethicist Travis Reeder, who authored a short book called Toward a Small Family Ethic: How Overpopulation and Climate Change Are Affecting the Morality of Procreation. Now, you know Travis Reeder.
Very well, yes.
Yeah. Smart guy.
That was very, very, Dr. Reader has, I think all of this writer's concerns can be easily answered just by picking up Dr. Reader's book, Towards a Small Family Ethic. He's brilliant. So yeah, definitely pick that up if you can.
So I got a good
Thank you for writing.
Yeah, I got a good reply from Todd. He wrote back, I just had to point out the irony, which reminds me of my green environmentalist friends bragging about their flights to epic overseas vacations on Facebook, where it is lauded as enviable behavior. Humans are sure interesting.
Well, you know what? Related to that, we're about to do an episode on music. And, a lot of these artists are really big, famous artists, and they tour, or at least they used to. Some of these older, like Paul McCartney, and I don't want to give the list away before we go down, but some of these artists tour, and I think about the gas emissions. They think about the gas emissions, and they'll call themselves out. But we're not perfect, just like you said. So at least they're using their status to bring awareness at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'd love to see people, who have that kind of notoriety be great role models and be as good an example as they can be. And it's probably true that most of them have horrific ecological footprints and carbon footprints, especially. But I tell you what, I would want to invite you and any listener, if you know of someone who is a big movie star, a big musical recording artist, or somebody who's just got a real claim to fame, and they are really walking the talk of sustainable living, then let us know about them, because we would like to definitely celebrate the best examples.
Absolutely.
Picking on people for their hypocrisy, I don't know. I'm not sure that that's really the most productive strategy for us to take. And I'll be the first one to confess that, man, I am so far from perfect.
Same. We all do what we can do, and talking about it is just the first part of the battle, and just recognizing that we're not perfect. That's all we can do.
Yeah. I'm pretty proud of myself that here we are in summer. It's really great weather finally for bicycle riding. So there were a number of days this past week that I left the car in the garage, never got in the car, rode my bike to meeting, rode my bike to the bakery to support a local baker and get the most amazing loaf of bread, rode then to the supermarket to get groceries, and it won't be too long before I'll be able to ride to the farmer's market to get produce. And I am just enjoying the heck out of being on my bicycle instead of behind the wheel of an auto.
It's excellent. It's good exercise. You are saving the planet, and you get to enjoy the beautiful day.
There you go. Well, we're both pretty excited about what we're going to talk about today, so let's get into it. The main event in this episode is we really need to decide what we're going to call it. I kind of came up with environmental/overshoot songs because, environmental songs is a really broad category.
Yeah.
I don't think we've necessarily picked songs that are only about overshoot. What do you think we should call this list?
I think that's pretty accurate, actually. Most of my songs either address climate or overconsumption. So I think having overshoot in our list is an excellent idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah. We can ask people to write in and rate the songs for us and see if we can cross-reference lists. And
I want to invite listeners to submit their own song suggestions. We will have overlooked some, or whether intentionally or unintentionally, and so it'd be kind of fun, I think, to get a longer list ultimately.
Yeah.
So go to the show notes. There's a lot of good things in the show notes for this episode, and one of those things is going to be a link to this playlist that we've put together at the Growth Busters YouTube channel. And we're definitely not calling that the top 10 because we are going to continue to add other songs as we discover them to that playlist. And I think I've already got probably 13 or 14 videos in that list. And you'll probably enjoy going there, even if you've listened to this episode of the podcast and heard the music. In some cases, the videos are pretty cool, and we're not showing you the videos on this podcast.
Yay.
So what we want to do is we want to share, Erika and I have put together our favorite 10. Who knows why we love them? Maybe we think they have the best lyrics, or they're the most effective, or maybe they've got the best hook, or what? Who knows? And here's the deal. If you're listening to this podcast in its normal spot, we're going to play a little bit of music. But because of copyright issues, we're only going to play a little bit of each song here. However, Erika and I have gone to the trouble of creating another version of this podcast, same conversation, but it includes all of the music, every song from start to finish, because there is one place on the internet where we can do that, over at Mixcloud. So if you want to hear all of each song, then head to the show notes and listen to this episode over at Mixcloud. We'll have the link in the show notes. But if you don't want to hear all the music and you're a speed demon and you're listening to us at double speed anyway, then you can stick with us right here and we'll do a shortcut from the beginning to the end of each episode. Is that a decent explanation of that?
It's perfect. Yeah. And anybody can go and access the music on our YouTube page, where you'll be able to also watch the video along with hearing the full-length song.
And we definitely want to hear from our listeners with their ratings of the tunes that we talk about today, but also suggestions of tunes that we add to the list.
Kicking it off on our list is an all-star collaboration recorded in the lead up to the Paris climate conferences that took place in 2015. This song is titled Love Song to the Earth. It is by Paul McCartney, along with John Bon Jovi, Colby Collette, and others who sing about how the future of our planet is in our hands. And they call directly on each of us to save it from being destroyed from the potential ravages of carbon emissions and anthropogenic effects that define our current climate crisis. I think this is really a political means for waking people up to an issue that concerns every living being on this planet. So it was really a great way to motivate those in power to take action, and having unification of popular voices in, or not just pop music, but in media in general, is something that all of us activists strive to do. And why do we do this? Why do we share clips about Bill Maher or Stephen Colbert, or have an episode dedicated to songs about environmental consciousness and sustainability? Well, because our current situation suggests that we haven't been listening to the experts and the scientists. We'd rather listen to those we look up to, for whatever reason we look up to them. And we're actually really lucky that some of these people are not only activists, they're not only artists, but they're also activists who are consciously aware like us. And they are using their status for the greater good of all people and the planet altogether.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Let's give it a listen.
This is an open letter from you and me together. Tomorrow's in our hands now.
Find the words that matter, say them out loud. I make it better somehow.
Looking down from up on the moon, it's a tiny blue marble. Who'd have thought the ground would stand on?
Could be so fragile.
This is a love song to the earth. You know ordinary world, a diamond in.
All right. Well, that does pull at the heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah, that was a very heartfelt song. It's great. It's a really beautiful song. The video is beautiful. So again, if you have the time, definitely check it out on our YouTube channel.
The first half of it, I thought maybe Paul McCartney was, kind of pulling his punches and trying to be a little too vague and not specific. But then he really comes through with, "See, Mama Earth is in a crazy mess. It's time for us to do our best. From deep sea straight up to Everest, she under crazy stress. She under crazy stress." Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
And 6 billion people all want plentiness. Some people think this is harmless, but if we continue, there'll only be emptiness. Pretty right on.
Yeah.
Makes me want to love the earth. It is. It's a love song to our planet, and it is the only one we've got.
You got to take care of it. Another really great thing about this song is every time this song is purchased, streamed, or shared, the royalties go directly towards the efforts of Friends of the Earth to keep fossil fuels in the ground and lower carbon emissions, and also to the work of the UN Foundation to inspire international action on climate change. So that's really cool.
Yeah, Friends of the Earth is no slouch environmental outfit. They're one of the best ones going out there in my book. So next on the list is a song that just absolutely, it's such a classic. There was no question about whether or not this was going to be on the list. And it's Big Yellow Taxi, which Joni Mitchell wrote and first recorded in 1970. You've heard this song before, right, Erika?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I'm very happy that you added it to your list.
Well, and I just asked that question because you're a whole lot younger than I am, and so some of these oldies, I'm never sure if you're familiar with them. This is definitely
I had
an
a
oldie.
couple oldies on my list too.
You went back a little bit, but an interesting story. Joni recorded it, but she got up just to like number 69 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, or whatever the chart was that everybody was paying attention to in those days. And another group, The Neighborhood, recorded a version of it. And for some reason, that really caught everyone's attention. And that soared right past Joni Mitchell's version and ended up being much higher on the chart and on the chart longer than Joni Mitchell's original version. And then finally, in 1974, so 4 years later, Joni Mitchell records a live performance of it, and that live performance caught on, and that ended up spending 10 weeks on the top 100 in 1974, another Joni Mitchell version.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then fast forward to 2002, and Counting Crows recorded the song. And there's a great video, and of course we'll have links in the show notes to that too. Great video, and I really enjoyed the way they treated the song. Maybe we should just let the song speak for itself. Shall we give it a listen?
Let's listen.
All right, going to do something unusual with this because we have three versions. We have Joni Mitchell's original, we have The Neighborhood's chart topper, and then I'll just skip Joni Mitchell's live version in 74, but then the Counting Crows in 2002 is different enough. I'm going to play for you a little bit of each. So we're just going to shut up and let you hear the songs. So if you're listening to the version of this podcast where we can play all the music, then you'll get a little bit of each so you can kind of compare them.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?
Hey, now they pay paradise to put up a parking lot.
That's a great song. It's going to be stuck in my head all day. I think when I first heard this song, I can't remember exactly when, but I did not realize what the message was. And I think that's for a lot of us initially hearing a song. You don't really realize it until you actually sit down and like dissect it. I actually really enjoyed looking at this song a little deeper and realizing it's like clear as day. The lyrics just speak for themselves.
I kind of had to stop and think about it too, because I've always just treated it as an environmental song, as a song about us destroying nature, paving paradise and putting up a parking lot, putting trees in a museum. That's all pretty obvious stuff, and that you don't value it until it's too late because it's gone. But when I was watching the Counting Crows music video, their video really didn't focus on that part of the story. Their video looked to me like it was kind of a love story about a guy not appreciating the person he loved.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking myself when I heard this song. And even now, just looking at the lyrics, that you don't know what you got until it's gone. I think a lot of us think about our relationships and how we don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. But the same goes for the planet, our home that we all live. We won't appreciate it until it's gone.
Yeah. So I've got a treat for you, Erika, that I'll bet you haven't, I'm hoping you haven't seen it. There was this television show well back before you were born called the Sonny and Cher Show. You probably know of it, right?
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher, in their early days, their young days, before Cher really became this, big sex symbol in the way she dressed and performed, Cher on that show performed this song. And they had there was an artist who I guess created some little cartoons for them from time to time that they used on the show. They asked this artist to create a cartoon to go with the song Big Yellow Taxi. And so we're going to include a link in the show notes to a YouTube video where you can see and hear early Cher performing the song, plus this really cute, great cartoon that really is all about the environmental angle of it. It's a great cartoon.
Nice. Thank you.
What's next?
Number 8 on our list is the Marvin Gaye's Mercy, Mercy Me. This song was released in 1968, well before climate change was a largely recognized social concern. At least, I don't know, I wasn't alive back then, but it definitely wasn't to the point to where it is now. This song is more of a direct mourning for the destruction of the earth. There's a few specific examples in this song, but I think most prominently the lyrics, "What about this overcrowded land? How much more abuse from man can she stand?" I think that one says it all.
Yeah, I was really touched by that. Yeah.
Way ahead of its time.
And you put me to shame because I'd forgotten about this song, and so I didn't come up with this. You nominated this, and I just said, of course, I can't believe I forgot it. Let's give it a listen.
Whoa, oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be now. Where did all the blue skies go? Poison is the wind that blows from the north and south and east.
What about this overcrowded land? How much more abuse from man can she stand? Yeah, you were right. There was a pretty good catalog of transgressions of man against the planet.
Yeah, this one's really direct. There's a few of them on our list that are not, we have to kind of dissect it a little bit more to derive meaning and what the artist's intended message was. But this one's really just as it is and beautifully done.
This was back in 1968, and of course, this was about the time when we were really waking up to the damage that we were doing. That famous book by Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, the Cuyahoga River catching on fire. So we woke up and we got busy and cleaned up our act in a lot of ways. We cleaned up the air. Air pollution was a lot worse in most U.S. cities back in 1965 or 1970 than it is even today. And so some people, a lot of economists seem to think, oh yeah, we solved that problem. We had enough economic growth that we could afford to clean up our act. But the truth is, we had this, I think my opinion of it is that we had just a temporary decade of progress. And then all of the progress we made just completely got swamped, overwhelmed, as we just continued the relentless pursuit of more of everything, more people, more economic throughput. And so now even though the brown cloud in your city's atmosphere may not be quite as visible to you today as it was maybe in 1970, there are so many more toxins in our environment. There are so many more toxins in our bodies, and we've got, a climate that is getting set up to maybe kill us. So we've lost ground.
I like that you said that, Dave, because I don't know what that is, but it's this thing that people do. It might just be a human nature to sort of sit back, kick back, and once you have these small victories, you celebrate and you think it's, okay, we're done with that problem now, let's go on to the next one. But I think that mindset is dangerous, and if we acted that way in any other regard in our life, I mean, that's like, where would we be?
Plus, we've doubled human population since then,
Yeah, it might not feel like we are in a disaster land, but that mindset is not one that we ought to have if we really want to see the future thrive.
So that's kind of a sad song, and so I'm kind of glad that we're following that up with number 7 on the list is one of my favorites because it really is hilarious. I don't know if you're a Weird Al fan or not, but Weird Al Yankovich, the guy's a genius, and this is a fairly recent song. This is from 2014 from his album Mandatory Fun, First World Problems. I'm inclined to play the song first and talk about it later. Do you have anything you want to say about it before we share it?
Let's have a listen. This will actually be my first time listening, so. Please.
So you haven't seen the video either then, obviously?
I have not.
Oh, Erika, you have got to see the video. It is hilarious. But let's give it a listen.
Yes.
My maid is cleaning the bathroom so I can take a shower. When I do, the water starts getting cold after an hour. I couldn't order off the breakfast menu 'cause I slept until 2. Then I filled up on bread, didn't leave any room for tiramisu. Oh no, there's a pixel out in the corner of my laptop screen. I don't have any bills in my wallet small enough for the vending machine. Some idiot just called me up on the phone. What? Don't they know how to text? OMG, I got first world problems.
That was a great song. really funny.
So, like I said, you have got to see the video, so be sure to head to the show notes for this episode and get the link, or obviously you can go to YouTube and search for it and you'll find it. First World Problems. What a great, I mean, it's going to be a classic. It ought to be in time capsules. It ought to be in the Smithsonian because it is a perfect catalog of overconsumption in the overdeveloped world.
Yeah. And these problems sort of just deter our attention away from the real stuff happening. And that's, the goal of the entire system. Yes.
Yep. But I just love, my house is so big, I can't get Wi-Fi in the kitchen. What a problem to have.
I like, my Sonicare won't charge. Now I got to brush my teeth like a Neanderthal. Like, oh no, what are you going to do?
Yep. So this next one, I never even heard of.
What?
I confess, I was unaware.
Oh, number 6 on our list comes from one of my all-time favorite bands. They are definitely a high school band. Well, something I listened to in high school. They unfortunately only recorded a single album, but it was a great one, and it continues to be one of my favorites that I can listen to on repeat. The Postal Service's 2003 album titled Give Up includes our number 6 song titled Sleeping In. After hearing and analyzing the lyrics of this song, Ignorance is Bliss comes to mind. The singer implies that nothing is exactly how it seems unless you're dreaming, and it's much easier to sleep in and pretend that the world's threats and issues don't exist than it is to wake up from the dream and actually take action. So I'll let you play.
Again last night I had that strange dream where everything was exactly how it seemed. No concerns about the world getting warmer. People thought that they were just being rewarded.
Yep, I never had heard of it. It's a pretty song. And this whole idea of sleepwalking, we're sleeping in, we're sleeping through.
Wow. The lyrics, concerns about the world getting warmer. People thought they were just being rewarded. Now we can swim any day in November. That almost directly speaks about the climate changing. And at the time, the song was released in 2003, so people didn't really refer to our current situation as a climate crisis, but more so just global warming. And so it's just refreshing to now see, like at the time, I didn't really appreciate them for doing this, but just recognizing that issue.
Absolutely.
Yay for indie bands.
I want to just say that this next song, for me, it gets us into the big leagues here. In fact, this next song if it wasn't for the fact that the 2 after that I am contributing to our top 10 list are so amazing. Really, I've got the next 3 songs submitted by Dave Gardner, I think are Wall of Famers for environmental / Overshoot top 10 lists. They're so incredible.
Like Wall of Excellence status?
Yeah, totally. Yep. It's that Wall of Excellence coming back again. Yeah, so this first one, Matchbox 20, 2007, How Far We've Come. Every list has to have this song. It captures, I think, better than any of the songs that we're talking about today, this really weird condition that we're in, where progress is killing us, you know? We are so proud of what we've accomplished, and yet what we've accomplished is we have figured out how to burn down the house.
Yeah.
So enough said, let's listen.
I'm waking up at the start of the end of the world, but it's feeling just like every other morning before. Now I wonder what my life is gonna mean if it's gone. The cars are moving like a half a mile an hour, and I started staring at the passengers and waving goodbye. Can you tell me what was ever really special about me all this time? But I believe the world is burning to the ground. Oh well, I guess we're gonna find out. Let's see how far we've come.
Top that.
Oh, I don't know. I think number 2 is definitely my favorite because it was originally my number 1. But no, mad appreciation for Matchbox 20. How Far We've Come is great. And I love what you had to say about it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Counting down to number 4 on our list is Jack Johnson's Gone. This song is about overconsumption and losing oneself to possessions instead of realizing what's really important in life. The light rhythms and simplicity of this song kind of reminds us all that the society that we live in is just driven by mass consumerism, and at the core of all of this is just our need to fit in. So yeah, I'll go ahead and just let you hit play.
Look at all those fancy clothes, but these could keep us warm just like those. And what about your soul? Is it cold? Is it straight from the mold and ready to be sold?
Yeah, wow. And what about your soul? Is it cold and ready to be sold?
Yeah. Just the symbols of status continue to flood our human experience on a daily basis. And I think even now more so with the rise of social media and just being able to follow all those people we deem successful and just trying to be versions of them. I think it all really just compromises our morals and just keeps us from really looking at what's important.
Yep. Well, next on the list was mine, Full Steam by David Gray and Annie Lennox, and this is another one I think is a classic. It's going to have to be in the museum, in the wing that chronicles the destruction of human civilization.
Whee!
Who's going to put that display together? But I just think this is a classic.
Now you saw it coming, I saw it coming, we all saw it coming, but we still bought it. You saw it coming, I saw it coming, still running full steam ahead.
We all saw it coming, but we still bought it.
It's a great song.
Enough said.
Thank you.
Interesting. I want to quickly share with you someone, and I don't remember who, but I also found someone had done a quick interview with Annie Lennox and David Gray about that song. And so I've got just a short clip of David Gray's comments about that to share with you, Erika. See what you think.
This song slightly leaves you hanging. You're not quite sure exactly what's going on. We're off in a dream world of our own making, as in mankind, westernized man. We can see what's coming. We know we're f***ed. And yet here we all are, getting the latest gadgets, talking shit to each other about how green we're going to be.
Yeah.
Love it.
Another depressing one, but man, really captured what we're doing to ourselves.
Good job, David Gray, Annie Lennox. So that brings us to our number 2. This was kind of a hard one and a struggle for us. We talked a little bit about what's going to be our number 1 song.
And in all fairness, it was just luck of the draw because I wanted Erika to go first with number 10. And she didn't realize I was conning her, and that meant if we alternated that I got the number 1 position.
This one came in really close. It could still be number 1. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll wait to hear what the listeners say. But this one is by Radiohead. It's titled Idiotech, and it's been a longtime favorite of mine for its dark and apocalyptic vibe. I'm a huge Radiohead fan, and this song can be interpreted in a number of ways. But mostly I'm thinking it speaks about some natural disaster, war, or technological breakdown. And just if anybody's familiar with Tom York being a very strong environmental activist who's been very vocal about his concerns related to climate, including his solo release of his 2006 album titled The Eraser. I think this song speaks mainly about the current climate crisis.
Well, the title certainly got my attention. Thanks for bringing this one to the table. It's a great tune, so let's give it a listen.
Who's in a bunker? Who's in a bunker? Will let you to first, let you to first, let you to laugh till my head comes off. I swallow till I burst.
We're not scaremongering. This is really happening.
Yes, that spoke to me too. I love this song so much.
It's pretty chilling.
Yeah. What'd you think about that one?
I wouldn't say I love it, just like Schindler's List. Great film, but I'm not going to say I love it. I don't want to watch it once a week.
Love, when I say love, I mean like it is just a work of art.
Yeah.
It is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think Radiohead just in general, like mad respect. Radiohead, if you're listening, I love you.
There you go. Yeah, pretty chilling. And that brings us to number 1. And I want to ask, were you familiar with Road to Hell before I put this list out?
I'm embarrassed to say No.
Don't be embarrassed, because I would hazard a guess that probably 90% of our audience never heard of this song.
Maybe never even heard of Chris Rea.
This is an amazing, amazing song, and the video is pretty awesome also. And if you do just go to YouTube and look for it, you'll find different versions. And the long version is the coolest. There's like a 6 minute and 8 seconds or something like that really has a really neat intro, which we're not going to play for you here because I've got the 4.5 minute version.
I'm excited to hear.
Okay, so
I purposely did not listen to any of them because I wanted it to be the first time I heard.
oh my God! So you really need to be watching the video too. So you're gonna have to go do your homework. But enough said.
Well, I'm standing by a river, but the water doesn't flow. It boils with every poison you can think of. And I'm underneath the streetlight, but the light of joy I know is scared beyond belief, way down in the shadows. And the perverted fear of violence chokes the smile on every face. And common sense is ringing out the bell. This ain't no technological breakdown. Oh no, this is the road to hell.
You really got to watch the video when you listen to this.
Well, you guys all know what I'm going to be doing after this.
I mean, this is gonna go down in history, I tell you. This ain't no upwardly mobile freeway. Oh no, this is the road to hell.
When was this released? The year?
1989.
That's the year I was born.
Wow. Sorry. I'm so sorry, Erika, for the fact that my generation hadn't figured out what we're all figuring out now, finally, slowly, and that was that we needed to take the first exit off of that road to hell.
We're still struggling to do that today, so hey, baby steps.
Yeah, and so, in a way, it's kind of a downer of an episode because most of the songs that we've shared are really, they're pretty much bad news. These are songs where the message is, hey, you guys, just like David Gray said, you're f***ing it up. Change your ways.
Yeah. You know what? I have a strong guilty pleasure for the darker songs and the sad ones and the ones that actually mean something. And these all very much have a message to share. So it's important. I'm really glad that we had this episode, and I'm glad that we're sharing these songs with everybody. And hopefully this doesn't make anybody feel too depressed, but, enough to actually act.
So here's the deal. What I'm going to do, I feel like I owe you, if you've listened to all of this and you are a little down in the dumps now, what you can do when this episode is over, and it is not quite over because we've got a bonus song to end the episode. Woo! But what you need to do is go find Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World, which in so many ways belongs on this list too, but will leave you feeling a little better because it does celebrate the best of this world, and it really reminds us of what we need to protect and love.
That is a great, great piece of advice. Thanks for sharing. Yes.
Great song.
I'm going to
too.
listen to that myself.
Yeah. So the reason that we've got a bonus song here is because no list of great environmental songs would be complete without the Growth Busters theme song. So it's the opening title music in the Growth Busters documentary and the closing credits music. We also open and close this podcast with just a little bit of it, but our listeners never get a chance to hear the whole song, and it really is a work of art. I want to give a huge shout out to Jake Fader, who wrote it and did the music, and Carlos Jones, the vocalist. You can find both these guys on the internet, and we'll include links to their websites, because after you listen to the full version of the Growth Busters theme song, you will become fans. Now, of course, you will only hear the full version if you have headed over to the alternate podcast episode over at Mixcloud, where we're able to include all of the music. So if you're still listening to the aircheck version where we have to skip most of the music, then look in the show notes and find the link to the full version of this podcast where we actually play all the music. So we'll wrap up the episode, and then we will end with the Growth Busters theme song, but we will end with it in full for just the one special treat.
Great.
So before we do that, Erika, do you have anything that you want to share with our audience about this episode.
No, but one thing I do feel kind of bad about is that we did not share with our listeners that it's your birthday today. Is that private information? Do we not want to share?
No, it's not. It's not private, and I'm ashamed of myself for working on my birthday. But we've got a planet to save.
Yes, we do. I just want to wish you a very happy birthday, Dave. I'm honored to be your co-host, and for all of our listeners.
It is a blast working with you, Erika. What is this, our third episode together?
Episode 3, yeah.
That's great to have you along, so thank you for your dedication. So don't forget to explore these issues at growthbusters.org, subscribe to this podcast, and share this episode with your friends.
And just another quick announcement. If you like any of the tracks we've played today and you like Spotify, there is now a playlist for you. So check that out. We will be providing a link at the end of our show notes. So check that out. All recommendations welcome and happy listening.
And here we go with Jake Fader and Carlos Jones and the Growthbusters theme.
Calling, 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 calling. Call the Growthbusters. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Calling, 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 calling. Call the Growthbusters. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Some may dream to pave mountains and streams, but not me. I'm a growth buster. Some they just want more, but don't know what it's for, but not me. I'm a growth buster. Don't want a solution at the cost of pollution. They think bigger is better at the cost of the weather, but no, not us. We are the growth busters. Calling, 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 calling. Call the growth busters. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Calling, 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 calling. Call the growth busters. Whoa, whoa, whoa. As we drown in options, we build our own coffins. Our heads in cities swell to create this earthly hell. In a race to claim their worth, with no regard for our earth. I think this acid rain is corroding their brain. Calling, 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 calling. Call the growth busters. Whoa, whoa, whoa. They're taking and a looting and a robbing and polluting, and the earth can't sustain this disease of the brain for much longer. We must call the growth busters. They're taking and a looting and a robbing and polluting, and the earth can't sustain this disease of the brain for much longer. We must call the growth busters. Hey. I ain't afraid of slow growth, no. I ain't afraid of slow growth. I ain't afraid of slow growth.